Hello everybody, greetings. This is Randy Masters here, speaking about the different classes that I teach for the Globe Institute. I've been teaching there for over 30 years and with David Gibson, having some fantastic classes. And I'm going to give you an idea of some of the different classes and what I get into. Now, I'm basically a Renaissance type person, and what I'm telling you that so you understand the background that I'm bringing into these classes. I'm a trained composer, former university instructor, recording artist, and a researcher. I have a master's and PhD in divinity, which is about spiritual studies, not religion. So I bring a lot of different types of techniques and information for empowering sound healers and others with protection techniques, with spiritual up-leveling techniques woven into my classes. Now, my classes have a lot of variety, and they're usually called resonant connections. And the reason for that is because what I'm doing is connecting the dots of a lot of different areas that I'm an expert in. Sound, music, sacred geometry, color, light, different types of numerological understandings. And I weave those together in different classes so you can see how things connect depending on what your background is and what you're looking for. So each class has a variety, and not necessarily everything that I present is for everybody taking the class, because there's such a variety of backgrounds that students have and participants. So I try to touch on many things, and depending on the nature of the class, I go deeper in certain areas in some classes than others, because that's where the interests are and where the needs are. I teach classes in tuning forks, and in tuning forks, I'm talking about the history of them, the different styles of tuning forks, what they're made of, what kinds of tunings you could be using. Because one of my specialties, since I have the tuning forks made for the Globe classes and for the Globe store, are custom tuning forks with certain kinds of alloys and aluminum that are custom alloys. And I talk about all the different kinds of things that you could do. Tuning forks based on acupuncture, tuning forks based on color, tuning forks based on historical tunings, tuning forks based on the conversion of sacred geometry formulas and ratios into sounds so that you can play the ratios of sacred geometry with tuning forks. So that's just an idea. Also, in the various sound healing classes that I do, I talk about the relationship between sound and color. I do a lot with color theory, color applications with light, with LED lights, with laser lights, with different types of color and pigment, and different light sources, and how those different frequencies line up with, well, let's say, depending on what your interests are, I go deeper into this area to talk about the way sound and light work together scientifically. So if you want to include those two mediums in your teaching or in your sessions with people, you have a better idea on how sound works and you can combine the two. Then I also do that with my sacred geometry classes, which focus on like the esoteric applications of sacred geometry, healing applications of sacred geometry, how to tune rooms, tune your studio, tune clients that you're working on with different types of geometry, and what the relationship between sound and geometry is. So a lot of times I will make tuning forks and talk about them based on the ratios that are found in the various kinds of forms in sacred geometry. So that kind of sonic geometry is where that, you might say, the umbrella for that type of work is. So that's another interest. And then there's the component that runs through all of my teachings about the use of sacred numbers. Numbers that have certain meanings that have been used in ancient societies and in esoteric texts. And I make an like for instance, archangels. I'll make tuning forks tuned to those numbers out of the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life. It's a little different than pop numerology. I'm going into the real ancient understandings of numbers and number resonances, and that's a very big aspect of this that runs through the tuning fork classes, the sound healing classes, aspects of sacred geometry, aspects of history, and how some of those numbers have occurred. So I'm weaving all of these things together in a very, very fun way. So I invite you to participate in those classes and contribute what it is that you're looking for. And each class, I tune my content to fit what I perceive are the needs in the class, or my knowledge of the needs that the different students have. So the same class, each time I teach it, can have certain different focuses based on what those needs are. Because my goal is to serve your needs and forward you on your path with any of these understandings, and also give you ideas in areas you may have not looked into in case you might want to expand or go deeper down the rabbit hole. For instance, if you hadn't studied sacred geometry or really looked into the science of color, I have all of those different mediums and disciplines interwoven in my classes. So I invite you to participate at any level. You can also take individual classes without having to take a whole series. And I recommend that you listen to the recordings and review the recordings and have a great time participating in the classes I offer for Globe.